Welcome to Becoming Wiser with Dr. Robert A. Rohm, author and world-renowned public speaker, as he shares stories involving his experiences and lessons learned in a good-spirited, positive, and fun way. Here's Dr. Robert A. Rohm.
You know, in our last podcast, I talked a little bit about myself growing up and my family and how it was just me and my mom and my dad. Today, I want to dive in a little bit deeper about that situation because something happened that I think will be very, very powerful, especially if you're a guy. If you're a male listening to this, I hope that today's podcast is an encouragement to you. My father was 42 years old when he married my mother. She was 21. So there's 21 years difference in their age. After they had been married for 2 years, I came along. I'm their only son. I'm their only child. And they were married in 1947. That was a long time ago. And I was born in 1949. That was a long time ago, too. And so I kind of grew up with my mom and my dad. And our family was maybe a little bit different because I looked at my buddies. Their fathers were all in their 20s or, 30s. They were young men. My father was older. I could tell. I didn't really understand it. It wasn't anything good or bad. I could just see that my father was older than most of my friends' fathers. And he was a good dad. He provided well for us. I never, ever in my whole life went to bed thinking, are we going to lose our house? Do we have enough money to pay the bills? I mean, we were fairly well, off. We weren't wealthy, but we certainly weren't broke by any stretch of the imagination because my father was a good businessman. And my father, he loved business, and he would come home and have dinner. My mother would have him dinner at 6:30 every night, and then he'd go to the Elks Club. He liked to play cards, and he would play cards. If you heard our last broadcast, he'd play cards on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. Tuesday was family night. We'd meet him at the Elks Club. We'd have dinner together, and then my mother and I'd go home. Then on Sunday night, was the Elks Club was closed, my mother and I would go to church, and my father would stay home, and that pretty much was my life for 18 years growing up. Now, you had a growing up time too. Over the years, I began to notice something. My mother, and I was just a child, so I didn't know how to carry this whole situation, but I hope you'll listen. I could tell my father was not really that interested in my mother. I mean, he was older, he was into business, he traveled to Europe and created a whole market of buying antiques and bringing them back in huge containers on ships. I mean, he was early on in bringing antiques from Europe to America. There were business associates that he trained and got them into the antique business. I mean, it was a big deal back in those days. So he knew the furniture business. He had been in jewelry. He had been in ladies' ready-to-wear in his previous occupations. But again, he was a good father and he was a decent husband. He wasn't running around on my mother or anything like that. He just was interested in business and playing cards and doing what he wanted to in life. I always remember growing up thinking, I wish Daddy'd spend more time with Mom. I wish they loved each other better or something. I didn't know how to put it into words. I wasn't being judgmental. I wasn't being condemning. It just seemed like there was a disconnect in our family. May I tell you something? I think there's a disconnect in every family somewhere. It may be between the parents and the children. It may be between the husband and the wife. It may be between brothers and sisters. But we weren't designed. Listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you is one of the most powerful things I've ever learned in my life. We weren't designed to live by ourselves. We were designed to live in community. And if there are people in your family you don't like, listen up. You need to learn how to work with them because they're going to be other people just like those people that you're going to meet in life. Years ago, I taught a class and there was a girl named Zoellen. Zoellen was in my class. I talked about this. I taught psychology. And I was teaching, I said, you have certain people in your family and in your life for a reason. And if you don't learn how to get along with them, you're going to meet them again. Only next time it'll be worse because you haven't learned to get along with them. She told me a few days after I taught that, she said, can I talk to you for a minute? She said, I have a brother named Fred. She said, Fred and I don't get along. She said, ever since I heard you say If you don't learn to get along with the people in your family now, you're going to meet them again, only it's going to be worse next time because you haven't learned to get along with that kind of person. She said, that's changed my whole attitude towards Fred. She said, I spend more time now thinking, okay, be kind to Fred, be nice to Fred, have a little more patience with Fred. She said, I have come to see that the people that are in my family are just like the people I'm going to meet later. Thank you for telling me that. Now, you may not like that. I may not like that. It's the truth. You're going to meet people just like your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter. They're out there. They're called people. Of course, you know, we do the DISC model of human behavior, and we talk about the dominant type, the inspiring type, the supportive type, and the cautious type. Well, they're going to be out there too. But my point right now is they are going to be the people in your family that you grow up with, that you live with. Well, as time began to pass, and I got a little bit older and I got a car, I began to take my mom with me places. Sometimes we would go out on Tuesday night, as you heard maybe in a previous broadcast, we'd go out to eat at the Elks Club together. We'd drive out there together. Before I could drive, she drove me. Then when I got 16 or 15, I had my learner's license. 16, I would drive her. So 15, 16, 17, 18, for at least 4 years, she and I would have a date where we would go meet my dad at the Elks Club on Tuesday night. 1965, I believe it was, the movie The Sound of Music came out. That was like the greatest movie, and to be honest with you, it's still my favorite all-time movie. Julie Andrews, she was going to be a nun, and she ended up marrying Captain Von Trapp and the children, and you know the story. It's a beautiful story. A friend of mine had tickets for us to go see that, so we double dated. We went to Atlanta. My buddy had tickets and I drove and we all went to see The Sound of Music. For the strangest reason, I hope you're listening, for the strangest reason, while I sat there and watched that movie, here's what went through my mind. Boy, my mother would love this movie. That's such a sweet story. My mother would love this movie. Man alive, I think I'm going to bring my mother to see this movie. So a couple of weeks later, I told my mom, I said, all right, you and I are going to have a date. And again, I just wanted my mother to be happy. I just wanted my mother to be loved. I didn't have enough wisdom or maturity to understand anything that was going on emotionally, but I just cared about her feelings. And I'm talking about in a very healthy manner. I wanted her just to be loved. I wanted her to be cared about. I wanted her to be happy. So a couple of weeks later, we went to Atlanta. I took her to the Varsity to dinner. The Varsity is a kind of a slimy restaurant where you have hamburgers and hot dogs and onion rings and French fries, but everybody goes to the Varsity. If you haven't gone to the Varsity in Atlanta, Georgia, the next time you go through, stop and eat. You can grease up your whole body for less than $10. I tell everybody the grease they're cooking in when I was in high school is the grease they're cooking in now. It's just really a greasy place. It's wonderful. I love the Varsity. And also get a peach pie before you leave. So anyway, we went to the Varsity for dinner, and then afterwards we went to see The Sound of Music. And of course, a wonderful story, and my mother cried, and she loved it. And so everything's going along great, and life moves on. Eventually, I got engaged to a beautiful girl, and we were going to get married. Now, what I'm about to tell you is painful. But again, I want these broadcasts and these podcasts to be real because I want them to help your life like they have helped my life. As we got closer and closer to getting married, I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to do this or not. I mean, she's a beautiful girl and she loves God and she has all of the things that any human could ever want. She's pretty, she's got a great personality, she's smart, she can play the piano, on and on and on and on. But there's something inside of me that just said, I don't know if I want to do this. So I went and talked to our pastor who was going to do the wedding. And I said, I am really scared. There's something inside of me that says, I don't know if you want to do this or not. He laughed. He said, Robert, everybody goes through that. He said, that's normal. He said, you're just losing your freedom. You're going from being single to being married. And it's just a fear that's normal that goes with the process. May I tell y'all something? That was the worst advice I ever got in my whole life. If you're scared to death to do something, it may be something inside of you trying to warn you, like a red light that comes on in a car. The red light is not the problem. The red light is saying something's wrong. There's a warning. That red light's telling you you need oil. Don't try to turn the red light off. Find out what the red light's telling you. The red light's trying to help you. It's your friend. Fear was going off inside of me. I didn't know what to do about it. So I talked to someone, my pastor. He said it was normal, so I accepted it as normal. Well, we went ahead, and I remember thinking to myself, even the day of the wedding, I'm not sure I want to do this. But I did, and we got married. And that marriage lasted 25 and a half years. When it began to fall apart, I didn't know what was wrong. I am like you. I've lived life. I've had some good times. I've had some bad times. But when I went to some counseling, I went to a therapist, and she was just such a great help to me. We talked, and I told her my whole life story. As I mentioned in a previous broadcast, she began to help me to see why I like to go out to eat on Tuesday nights. That was family night. To me, the way you do a family is you go out to eat. But boy, did she really help me when she said, Robert, do you know why you didn't want to get married when you got married? Do you know why? And I looked at her, I said, I've been trying to figure that out my whole life. She looked at me and she said, the reason you didn't want to get married is because you had already been married for 21 years. Oh my goodness. It was like scales fell from my eyes. I saw it. There was no anything physically, of course, between me and my mother, but emotionally, we were enmeshed with each other. I carried my mother's emotions. I wanted my mother to be happy. I wanted her to laugh and to experience fun and happiness in life and being with somebody that cared about her and loved her. And so I carried my mother's emotions. It wasn't my mother's fault. She just wanted to be loved. This isn't about blame. If you want to blame somebody, blame God for creating us, okay? He started this whole mess in the first place. And then Adam and Eve, they created more mess. And you can blame your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents, and you can trace it all back to Adam and Eve, and then you can trace it back to God. And you know where you'll be when you finish all that? Right where you are right now. Stop all the blame. I woke up to this failure was my fault. I could meet my wife's mental needs, physical needs, financial needs, spiritual needs, every need except one, her emotional needs. She had emotional needs, and I was not able to fulfill them because I was on empty. I was on dregs. I had nothing to offer emotionally because I had already given all my emotional support to my mother for 21 years. Now, why did I share that with you? I have the sneaking suspicion that all of us are in some kind of relationship that has baggage from a previous relationship. It may have been with your mom or dad. You may have had a dad that was very abusive. And so now your attitude is nobody's going to ever abuse me again, and you have a big shell around you. You may be a female that was abused by someone, and now you're not going to let anyone get close to you any longer. Life is complicated. Our emotions are fragile. And I just want to share with you the fact, and I hope I've communicated this, I take full responsibility for the failure of that marriage. I take full responsibility for the failure of understanding I'm trying to carry my mother's emotions. True, I was young. True, I was growing up. And true, I didn't really understand the situation at the time. But nevertheless, if it had not been that set of problems, it would have been your set of problems. Have you ever noticed we all have the same set of problems? Their relationship, physical, financial, marital, child rearing. They're all the same set of problems. They're just with different people. So I went through some counseling and I began to heal. And the way I healed the most was by spending some time with good, strong, emotionally healthy men. I became part of a men's fellowship group, and for over 10 years, I spent time with some of the healthiest, strongest, emotionally strong, healthy men. And they really gave me some good insight. We would have meetings. Our Monday night men's fellowship was every Monday night. And I did that for over 10 years. And I met some strong, healthy, mentally, emotionally men that could encourage me and tell me about their challenges and their struggles that they had gone through, and how spending time with other godly men would help me learn how to become a godly man myself. So I hope today, as we've talked about this, you'll take a minute to maybe listen. Here's what I'd have to say. I'm not a licensed marriage and family therapist, but here's what I would say to you from the bottom of my heart. Don't live with emotional pain. Don't live with, something seems really, really wrong, but I can't put my finger on it. Oh, well, I guess I'll just live with it. That's not doing you or anyone else any good. Find a friend. Listen carefully. I'm going to tell you how to solve this. Find a friend that you know and trust, that you can talk to and share your journey and your experience. Let them share their journey and their experience. Paul Meyer, who's a psychiatrist, told us in class, if you share your experience with another person and they share their experience with you, you'll be 50% better off, even if they're not a psychiatrist, even if they're not a licensed marriage and family therapist. You'll be 50% better off if you just open up your heart and share with another person what you're going through. You know why? Because they're going through it too. We're all going through the same stuff. They asked the top 500 CEOs in America, what's your biggest challenge? The answer that came back more than any other one was, I fear being found out that I don't know what I'm doing. Can you imagine that? These are the best of the best of the best CEOs in America. And their response is, I'm just trying to show up every day and do the best I can and learn how to run this company myself. Wouldn't it be great for them to spend some time with other CEOs and find out, what are your challenges? How can we help each other? This opens up the door. Let me warn you, this opens up the door to maybe a little bit of can of worms in your life, because you can either live with the pain or you can let the pain go. You can find someone and just share it with and learn how to heal. I want to say this humbly. I think I am the healthiest, emotionally healthy person you may ever meet. I'm able to share all this with you today, knowing that I have healed through it. I'm on the other side of it. And I hope something that I've shared with you today will help you walk into your emotional pain, be healed from it, get on the other side of it, and be a blessing to others. At least that's my purpose in sharing this story with you today. I'm Dr. Robert Rohm. I look forward to our next podcast together. I hope these times of sharing are a blessing to you and help your life along the journey that we're all on together. Thank you so much. God bless you.
For more information about this podcast, please visit www.becomingwiserpodcast.com.